place where he was sold at a slave auction away from his family at the age of 7. And now that school, which is now Alabama A&M, has the second largest amount of land of any HBCU. Former slave. The weak, the insignificant, and the foolish. Come on, there's more. Mary McLeod Bethune started what is now Bethune-Cookman University with what? $1.50. Come on, somebody, $1.50. She starts a school called the Daytona Literary and Industrial Training Institute for Negro Girls, and she made her poor son Albert go to school with the little girls. Come on, somebody. She started with items from a trash heap. She said her first desk was a crate turned upside down. That's how Bethune-Cookman University started. Foolish, weak. Mary McLeod Bethune, they said that when she was 9 years old, she could pick 250 pounds of cotton. Mary Peak taught contraband fugitives. Those are people that escaped to Fort Monroe during the Civil War. They escaped to Fort Monroe, and they called them contraband. And since it was contraband from the enemy, the Union forces were able to take those slaves into Fort Monroe, but they needed to be what? Educated. They needed to be educated, and they started learning under this big oak tree. I'm sorry, Deborah DeBose isn't here because this is her school. She started teaching them under the old oak tree, and several years after she started, she got so sick that she continued to teach from her sick bed. And 5 years after she died, they started Hampton Institute, now Hampton University, at the Emancipation Oak, where the Emancipation Proclamation was read. Foolish, weak, insignificant. Remember now, I'm not just reading their story, I'm reading your story. This is your story this morning. It's not just about them. It is just a reminder, but this is your story that we're talking about today. Look at this one. Next one, look. Fannie Lou, you know she's my favorite. Fannie Lou, she's my favorite. Look. She started the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party in her 1964 testimony before Congress was widely broadcast on news stations across America. Even though President Johnson tried to interrupt and prevent her broadcast from going out, it was shown all over. It's interesting, isn't it, how when you try to prevent somebody from being on TV, they wind up having a much larger audience than they might have had originally, that they get a lot more attention than they would have gotten originally, that a lot more people know their story. You all know what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. He was off the air for a while, and when he came back on air, he had more fans, he had more watchers, he had more viewers than probably at any time, because somebody tried to squash what he was saying, and instead they just gave him what? A platform. And that's exactly what happened with Fannie Lou Hamer. They tried to interrupt and stop what she was saying, but when she told them how she was beaten for registering voters, how she was kicked off of the plantation where she was a sharecropper because she was trying to register voters, when she told them how she was in jail, and they not only had the jail guards beating her, but the guards went and got 2 other black male prisoners and told them, under threat of them being beat, that they had to beat Fannie Lou Hamer right there in the jail. But that testimony was broadcast all over the United States, because God will use the foolish things. God will use the weak things. God will use the insignificant things to confound the wisdom of the wise. God says that he will nullify the wisdom of the world. He will take the things that are not, that's you and me, and he will nullify the things that are. That's the folks that are trying to say that the cross is foolishness. You and I need to believe in the cross of Christ, because if we believe in the cross of Christ, it is the power of salvation. It is the power of redemption. It is the power of liberation. It is the power of a guy named Jesus who hung on that cross and died and was resurrected and lives now in heaven for you and I. Look, y'all. The cross is a sign of power. It is a sign of power because God's people turned the world upside down. My teaching points for today are this. What